I got scammed out of $5,500 in digital items. And while that sucks, what's worse is realizing how easily it could happen to anyone, even many of you. This video is about more than just one bad mistake. It's about how the gaming industry primes us for moments like this. How I gradually tumbled further and further into the trap as I grew up. And after this undeniable wake-up call, what I'm going to do next. So sit back and relax, and I hope you enjoy this reflective story time. I've always been fascinated with digital cosmetics since I was a young child. From customizable cars in all of my racing games, to custom character outfits in Soul Calibur, to even minimalist palette swaps like my favorite colors in Smash Brothers. Cosmetics always allowed me to show off my personality and create a visual identity I strongly resonate with. But these cosmetics from my childhood tended to be free. By the 7th gen era, with the spotlight on internet connections and digital storefronts, the term DLC started to exist. Oftentimes, this was genuinely high-effort content, like map packs, expansion packs, new side stories, etc. The term microtransactions started to also become prevalent around this time. Some of the multiplayer games I was playing at the time did have these, and micro they were. A few cosmetics were beginning to cost you a few bucks. Even outside of games themselves, companies tried to cash in on user expression. Xbox Live avatar cosmetics are a good example. Or when the 3DS Badge Arcade released, allowing you to spend on virtual claw games to get badges that bling out your home screen. On and on, it was creeping in slowly enough that younger gamers didn't notice too much, and we'd make our little $4 purchases here, $2 purchases there, and carry on. However, my slow indoctrination into accepting how expensive digital cosmetics were allowed to be was amplified tenfold with my time on Team Fortress 2. The free-to-play update was the reason I installed Steam to begin with. The game was an awakening for not only me, but much of the games industry. Free? With no monthly subscription? How is this still so lucrative for Valve? Well, I think what I'm about to tell you of my personal experience answers that plainly. I was soon fascinated with the limitless possibilities you could equip to your character. From not only the actual weapon combinations that affected gameplay, but extending into hats, jackets, pants, sunglasses, beards, really anything that could fit into these 3 slots. As I played and saw everybody else with their severed max heads and pink as hell painted all-stars, I felt I needed my own style. But these were hardly unlockable within the game. You had to pray for decent weekly loot drops as you played, building up literal scrap towards certain items over the course of not only months, but at times years, depending on what you wanted. So I used some allowance money. This is the moment that exploitative businesses drool over. When people first reach for their wallets over things that are difficult to be patient for. My first few purchases were very small, really focusing on fairly generic items that could be painted to look like me. Coming from a console, I was too young and new to be familiar with peer-to-peer trading, but I was starting to become aware of the pay scale gamers were willing to shell out for other items. My own mom famously walked into my room during a Skype call with my friends and said, $80 for a pair of virtual earbuds? Now that's an obsession. I didn't take her words too seriously at the time. I didn't even own this particular item. I was just browsing the TF2 wiki. Up until recently, I had still laughed at her words as being more of a, she doesn't get it like we do. But in retrospect, those words were really just a warning of things to come. Fast forward just a little bit, I've now been a very bad kid and a very good customer. My measly allowance simply wasn't enough for what I wanted, and I was still too young to work. I was using mommy's credit card without her permission. What started as a, hey mom, can I use your card for a $5 purchase for a can of cream spirit paint, quickly turned into a money sink, as she'd forgotten to delete the card off my account after using it. After some convincing from the devil on my shoulder, I then used this opportunity to spend on the expensive in-game Manco store and dip into my first Steam summer sale. It was all on the same platform where the card was already stored. Very convenient. Just about $1,000 gone in the span of a week, having spent half of it on what I later learned to be completely untradeable items. This means a lot of what I had purchased was quite literally worthless, stuck on my account to fester. Money into the fire. My dad probably would have flown off the rails if he knew about this, but only my mom was around at the time to give me a stern and angry talk. She forced me to tally up my own purchases on her bank statement, grounded my electronics access for a month, and subjected me to reflect on my actions. I didn't do anything like this ever again with someone else's money, but in my head, at least my cartoon Pixar men looked cool. All unnecessary means to an end. Now, feeling burned by the fact that my cosmetics are untradeable and my inventory still worthless, this trend of spending on digital items continued to follow me as I became a more avid Steam user. I was beginning to accept a digital cosmetic inventory as a good alternative to my own physical wallet. Any cash allowance I made, or spare money I found by luck, almost immediately found its way being fed into a self-checkout machine as I purchased prepaid debit cards, my weapon of choice for resupplying my inventory with keys to pay for anything within my budget. I would also purchase games too from time to time. I wasn't depriving myself of other great entertainment, but a solid chunk of my money seemed to always find their way into being spent on these god-forsaken shiny items that never gave me much of anything besides virtual e-peen when I hear somebody in the lobby get excited that I was wearing something they desired. Another potential customer in the making. Valve was very happy, and so was the rest of the industry, finding their own moderate multiplayer successes in targeting people's willingness to pay for their simple desire to express themselves. But nobody else could create the same scale of a free market, with peer-to-peer trading systems and prices based around user demand. Valve soon realized that they could shoehorn this style of economy into another prominent franchise of theirs. This is the big kahuna. I've been into Counter-Strike for about 12 years now. Still to this day, if I want to have a great time with friends who are willing to play it, it doesn't get any better than a few rounds of Counter-Strike. There's something really beautiful about its minimalistic game design, the 25-year history, being the pioneer of the one life 5v5 shooter. The way you're able to showcase intuition and experience and express your playstyle in subtle ways is endlessly entertaining, and the franchise will probably continue to follow me the rest of my life as the best multiplayer first-person shooter ever made. Everyone's also aware this game has one of the most ludicrously sky-high asking prices for virtual cosmetics in existence. It didn't start out this way. Again, it was piggybacking off of TF2's success. You can see this plain as day once that Arms Deal update came out in 2013, where keys and cases were released, and your weapons could come in kill tracking stat track variants, and each case had a sub 1% chance for an exceedingly rare and valuable unusual covert knife. You could expect the prices of the items to be roughly equivalent at the time, but the brighter and louder and statistically rarer those skins were, ones that really showcased a personality, the more that price scaled up even beyond much of TF2's offerings. Quite easily, I obviously got pretty sucked into it. Valve had also released something quite convenient around this time, embedded right into the very Steam client we used every day. A Steam community market. That meant I could use the Steam wallet funds that I intended to buy games with to directly purchase some of the cosmetics I've wanted to buy. all without ever even having to deal with purchasing keys, finding a seller from a third-party website, or dealing with people who are selling items that are on a 7-day trade hold. Again, appealing to our impatience. It's diabolical and diabolically genius. Everything I ever wanted was now literally a few clicks away. It was easier than ever to spend, especially with this shiny new part-time job I had in high school, working a grocery store front end. You know what grocery store front ends also have? Gift cards. You know what also came out around this time? Steam wallet gift cards. Right in my very store. I salivated for that weekly $150 check, all so I could blow a good chunk of it on the latest and greatest skins to show to others in my online lobbies. Back then, new cases were released pretty regularly to pump up and drive hype and demand to the market. Seriously, in the span of 1 year, we had 11 weapon cases. That's like 141 new skins, not even including the knives. I bought and sold and rotated skins around, constantly recycling, but always losing money. And finally, here we get to my adult life, out of college and with a good job, where I had purchased many of the exotic items I'd always wanted, justifying them as an investment to sell later, when really I was fulfilling my own selfish desire to show off, while practically gambling on a temperamental stock market when I would get bored of my items later. I lost some money in selling these back, but licked my wounds and kept $5,500 worth of skins to play with for the foreseeable future. Let's talk about the scam now. I received a mysterious friend request while I was away in Miami last month. This was an account named and profile pictured identically to someone I knew. I questioned whether it was him, since most of their game time was on CS2, and it was a level 10 account, the level most scammers sit at. Because I hadn't heard from the friend in over 8 months, I decided to accept the friend request with the intent to question the man. Maybe it was my old friend who returned after over 8 months away from Steam with a new account. But this new account signed off and went offline before I could ask questions. I ping and message the original friend on Discord about this mysterious Steam account, but he's unresponsive too. 6 days later, the alt account finally messaged me. I am admittedly very distracted. I'm on autopilot, having a bit too good of a time playing the newly released Horse Girl Derby game, while also getting a bit too distracted chatting with friends on Discord. Just a few minutes later, he manages to coerce me into the iconic Face It tournament API scam. I clicked the link, logged in to a realistic looking but bogus Face It site. It tells me, your account needs verification. You need to send a trade offer out to a friend to make sure you're not a trade bot. But no need to actually send the items, it says. So I do just that, sending the item trade request over, but never confirming anything in the Steam app. But the verification status on this bogus site obviously doesn't change, and after a few extra attempts, where the scammer is getting increasingly pushy for me to actually accept and send items to my own alt account, I finally just bite the bullet and do send the items over. Anything to help an old CS friend sign up for his tournament, which was probably in his nature to do. The items weren't sent to my alt. That inventory was still empty. I looked in my main inventory. Nothing. The blood drained from my face when I realized what had happened. I then go to message the supposed alt account and blocked. I freak out that I've been hijacked and change the password on both accounts immediately. Another friend messages me on Discord asking if I've been hacked, because apparently before I changed my password, my account was immediately being used to message other friends in succession without my knowledge. My first thought after all this happened was to contact Steam support, but I know for a decade now, across all of their games, they've had a no trade back policy on any trades that occur on the platform. They can make the system as burglar-proof as possible, but if users give the robber the keys to the Ferrari, it all falls apart. I fucked up, and I have to live with it. It was sent to my email at the time without my knowledge, but the guy logged in from Kimki, Moscow, a classic Russian Counter-Strike scammer. Later that night, I hop over to the TV with a couple cocktails and just zone out to Tekken 4, unlocking characters mindlessly into the night until I fall asleep. The next few days, I'm still in despair. It gets easier with each passing day, but I just can't believe I fell for so many red flags in one exchange. The guy I added and sought to practically interrogate originally, I apparently treated as if he were my friend, without question, days later. It was a sobering experience, and I told myself I'd never fall for such things ever again, believing that the right thing to do in this scenario is purchase more new skins, just to shove it to the scammer. Because staring at an empty inventory is just too depressing and reminds me of bad times. And that's exactly what I do. I repurchase an inventory of cheaper, darker, space-themed weapon skins and a $5,000 knife. Because I won't lose it again, right? It seriously hurts my wallet, and I can't help but grimace as I make these purchases, but I roll with it. I later returned from vacation and was primed and ready to get to work on a cool new Tekken video for you guys on the channel here, until Valve releases their latest update. Season 3, everybody. And look at what we have here in the footnotes. Trade protected items. My jaw dropped. A little more than 2 weeks after I was scammed of my $5,500, Valve decides that scamming has officially become too prevalent. Their support tickets are getting flooded. People have filed lawsuits. Valve's had it. After a decade of this feature missing in action, letting any and all scammed Steam users rot, they now, once again, out of the blue, allow you to effectively reverse trades made within a 7-day window, specifically from that day onwards. I immediately went to Steam support to firmly request some sort of leniency on the matter, but both times they continued to point to the FAQ. Trades prior to this option's availability cannot be reversed and cannot be modified by Steam support. That's enough. That's enough. I'm done feeding the beast. Not just Valve's economies, that I have been a fantastic customer for the past 14 years of my life, but everything else outside of that I've ever felt guilty opening my wallet for. No more battle passes, making me fear losing out on items just because I suddenly didn't want to play the game for a couple months. No more low-effort CS2 gambling passes that unlock stars to spend on a chance of a valuable item as you play without any of the great CSGO operation content they used to put work into. No more contributing to the endless release of expensive cosmetics that add nothing to my gameplay experience with each new update. No more paying for gacha currency in mobile games to roll a roulette wheel for a character I'm not even guaranteed to own. No more keys or crates or even remotely any sort of loot box system unless I'm able to earn that chance by just playing the game. I'm just tired of it. All of it. I'm done with this cyclical digital consumerist slop bullshit ecosystem that I can't seem to escape. I get nothing out of this anymore. And now more than ever, as somebody who is burning through his savings on stupid digital crap after I recently lost my job, I need to pick myself up, face reality, and get my life back in order. Honestly, making this video filled me with even more conviction than I already had. Repurchasing exotic items after that scam at my own vulnerable expense was in my mind at the time my coping mechanism to stick it to the scammer and help myself feel better. That downgrading my inventory is a sign of weakness, and that anything less than what I had just means the scammers have won. But this was never a battle of me versus scammers. This is an industry that preys on your vapid desires and passive compliance. I'm not a worst case scenario. It's well documented that there are kids who grew up gambling on CSGO cases constantly, or betting skins on esports matches, or trading their skins into casino websites to top up their balance, and who continue to ruin their adult lives while remaining hopelessly addicted to the rush of an unlikely win. I've played a lot of games over the years that I've also lost a lot of money to. But most of this story focuses on Valve, because not only were they the primary drivers of this unfortunate addiction, but being responsible for one of the biggest gaming distribution platforms ever, they remain a force within the games industry that all others are too eager to follow based on their success. Love them or hate them, Valve are responsible for either inventing or perfecting pretty much every major draconian gaming monetization scheme we have today. They exploit psychological weaknesses, such as loot boxes, which prey upon reward cycles and sunken cost fallacy, virtual economies that mimic the feeling of being a risky stockbroker, battle passes that blatantly target the fear of missing out, early access games appealing to the beta tester identity and the promise of dreams, not a finished product. All this was brainstormed by their on-staff economists and psychologists from atop their ivory tower in Bellevue, Washington. Even digital game ownership and the disappearance of physical media, another hot debate topic to this day, was popularized by them with the release of Steam in 2003 and continues to keep customers sticky, who often don't want to migrate to other lesser distribution offerings. It hurts because in contrast, they make some of the best games ever made when they put their heads on straight towards virtuous goals. I'm a huge fan of all of their franchises, and I welcome any sequels. I bonded with classmates and met some of my best online friends to this day by playing their games. In the case of their multiplayer stuff, unlike the rest of the industry, there's nothing pay to win about Valve's free-to-play offerings. And when they tried that with Artifact, it failed. This CS2 trade update is honestly great too, for future victims. And I'm happy they did do something. Just a shame it was so late, because their bottom line continued to be padded with silence and obedience. If I hadn't gotten swept up into the premium cosmetic obsession when I was so young, and status-seeking coercion wasn't constantly dangled in front of my developing mind with each new update, I might have been tens of thousands of dollars richer by now. Many of these games players kept purely to remaining free to play, or only dipped a bit of cash into the game and remained satisfied. But there's no doubt in my mind there's others of you out there with the state that this industry is in these days. It's very hard for me to just tell every other gamer who's affected by this silent addiction to stop. Like kicking any bad habit in life, this kind of thing has to come from within. Isolate yourself. Take the time to have a deep introspection. Tally up your bank statements and really ask yourself if the additional chunks of money slipping through the cracks each month For endless loops of FOMO battle passes and greedy collaboration skins are worth satiating that vanity-seeking pressure the gaming industry has manipulated you into feeling. Because for me, it took being hit with one of the stupidest mistakes of my life to realize I wasn't just spending money. For 14 years, I've really been spending myself. My time, my energy, my identity, all poured into games and economies that never cared who I was, only that I kept paying. And if you're still deep in this hellish loop, tipping the dealer who owns the fucking casino, and still convincing yourself that it's harmless or just cosmetic, maybe ask yourself another question. If it didn't cost anything to join, why does it cost everything to let go? Thanks for watching.